That's for sure. Absolutely. All right, now, so let's first talk about solutions. Actually, before we talk about the main solution, let's talk about solutions that wouldn't work, because this is a problem. There's obviously been a conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, or Israeli Arabs, whatever you like to call,
Yep.
since 1948. What are some solutions people have tried that have not worked? Let's go there first.
Well, first of all, you have to focus on what the problem is. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do with the 1.8 million Arabs in Judea and Samaria. And so all the different solutions that the so-called right is offering are different solutions as concerning what to do with the Arabs. Some people in Israel want nothing to do with them whatsoever and would be prepared to take less land, even cut a deal now close to the 67 lines, to take less land as long as they don't have to take in any Arabs. That's one mentality. That's the line that the left is selling, that the worst thing we can do, and you know, that resonates with Israelis. They don't want another 1.8 million Arabs in their country. Now, the left, they don't care about the land. They care about this notion of peace that really isn't attainable. But if they cared about the land, they would value it, and that would be an independent issue. It's our land, right? And they don't. They are fighting for peace only, not for land, as though peace were available. And that's a lie that they forever promulgate to the Israelis. So that's on the one side. Now, the people identified as the right have come forward with other solutions. For instance, Lieberman wants to exchange the Arab Triangle containing, which is part of Israel territory, containing 300,000 Arab Israelis. He wants to exchange that land and those people, as is, for land in Judea and Samaria populated by 350 to 400,000 Israelis. As I said in my talk, I don't think that is legally feasible, but it was a good thing that he did it because he put on the table the idea of population exchanges when you're dividing borders, and that idea is a tried and true idea for settling ethnic and territorial conflicts. So he put that on the table, although his proposal has no chance of going anywhere. Now, Carolyn Glick takes the position that the best thing we can do is to annex all of the land, including the 1.8 million Arabs, and over time, according to our requirements, offer them citizenship, and it may take 5 to 10 years before they accept the citizenship. They would have to speak Hebrew, they would have to sign loyalty oaths, they would have to serve in the national service, all kinds of criteria. And she thinks that that's better than trying to live with the two-state solution where the Arabs are hovering above our coastal plain and can attack us as they do from Gaza. So for her, the lesser of the two evils is to attempt to domesticate the 1.8 million Arabs over time and give them citizenship over time. And the key issue is not the citizenship so much as is we are allowing a hostile population within our borders who are entitled to the rights we accord to all people located within our borders. And it's one thing if a minority population is cooperative and wants to help, but there is absolutely no evidence that the Palestinians or the Arabs will cooperate at all. Even in Israel, there's great problems with the political leadership and with a large number of Israeli Arabs who were born and grew up here. They are a problem, and they are undermining the Zionist nature of the state and our ethos and everything else because it's a competing narrative and competing people, and we're asking for trouble. if we think we can live comfortably with them. So what Martin Sherman says, for those who know him, he's a brilliant analyst. Martin Sherman says, for her to believe that we could domesticate all these Arabs is as delusional as the left, who believes that we can make a peace deal with the Arabs. So that's the fault of her idea. If you look at France, they don't even have 10%. The Arabs are less than 10%. Look at all the trouble that France has with that Arab population, so much so that a large part of France, wherever the Muslims are, they're no-go areas for France, and France doesn't exercise sovereignty there whatsoever. They allow Sharia law. They allow, they don't even go in there with their firemen or with their police. They just avoid it. And so that's what it's come to there with 5 to 10% of the population. But Carolyn Glick thinks that we can domesticate the Arabs, who would then constitute 35% of our population. So that's her idea. Now, Naftali Bennett tries to have it both ways. The most land with the least Arabs. So he proposes annexing Area C and not annexing where the population density is of the Arabs. And Area C is 60% of the land. If it's not a solid piece of land, it's like Swiss cheese, right? And it contains maybe 70,000 Arabs and close to 400,000 Jews. And it's easy to say, well, look at that. We'd love to have that land. But he wants to then negotiate some kind of autonomy with the Arabs, believing that the Arabs would cooperate, and they never have cooperated. And Martin feels that trying to work out that deal is very problematic and very expensive. And Naftali Bennett basically said that he's not wedded to the deal, I think because he realizes how problematic it is. So those are the competing ideas for what to do with the Arab population.
Now, then you talked about an idea that Moshe Feiglin and some other politicians in Israel have shown interest in, and you thought that that was the only solution, really not a lot of options. So tell our audience what that is.
Well, leaving aside the difficulty in selling the solution, if you look at it in simple terms of the best thing that would work or has the greatest chance of finding peace, even putting it that way, is the idea that Kahane first mentioned about they must go. I think he wrote a book, They Must Go. And people called him a racist because he believed that we couldn't live together with them and he was against them, but he was right. Now, what Sherman has proposed, and Feiglin has independently proposed the same thing, is to pay them to leave. And we're talking very generous payments, and we're talking voluntary leaving, so nobody can say anything in the sense that we're forcing it. And if we want to, even France, for instance, and other European countries are offering money to their recent immigrants to return to where they came from. The principle of compensating people to leave is an accepted principle, except when it comes to Israel. But if Israel were to offer $300,000 per family, which may not be an enormous sum in America, but if you take that money to a poor country, it is the buying power is enormous. And that money as an inflow to the country would be beneficial to the poor country. So $300,000 would cost Israel, if we just did Judea and Samaria in the first 10 years, $100 billion. And the people say, well, that's such an outrageous sum of money. But if you break it down, you'll find that it's not so outrageous in terms of where does the money come from or can we afford it. Because the GDP the annual GDP of Israel is approaching 400 billion, and which means that the 100 billion is only 25% of our annual GDP. And if that 100 billion were spent over 10 years, there's 10 billion a year, which makes it, I think, less than 1%, or no, 2% or something like that of the 400 billion yearly. Now, here's something to keep in mind. If the proposal of Kerry would require us to expel maybe 150,000 Jews minimum from Judea and Samaria, and based on the cost of expelling 8,000 Jews from Gaza, this is going to cost $100 billion and more. And so it is cheaper, or putting it another way, it is better to spend $100 billion on getting rid of the Arabs than moving the Jews back to Israel. Now, the repercussions of moving the Jews back to Israel, aside from the cost, would be the enormous inflation, particularly on land costs, and trying to house these people and find accommodation. And so that's a huge problem. On the other hand, if we were to use the money to pay Palestinians to leave, we would end up owning all that land. And that land would have billions of dollars of value, and we could immediately put the land to use in building housing for the burgeoning population and all the aliyah that's coming in now. And we could also, to raise money, to have the money to pay the Arabs, we could mortgage the land. We could do all kinds of things. But when you have so much land, all of a sudden, $100 billion doesn't look so expensive.
Right.
So there's lots of values in doing it. Plus, our defense costs would go way down if we no longer had to manage the hostile Arab population. So that's another huge saving that runs into the billions. And, looking at it from an economic point of view, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. And the only question is how to sell it to the world. And I say, we don't have to sell it to the world. How can they complain if we're offering people money to leave? I mean, what are we doing that, in principle, they can complain with? If the Arabs want to take the money, good luck to them.
I like the idea a lot. Here's one question I have. Let's say they agree to take the money, they leave the country. Would it be possible they'd be threatened by their, more violent cousins? Would you be concerned about?
Oh, they'll definitely be threatened.
Okay.
But Israel can manage that. I mean, even if the Arabs sell land to Israel, it's punishable by death by law in the PA.
Wow.
But I think that already there's people leaving Israel, or Palestinians are leaving, and I don't think that it could be done quietly, because what happens is all of a sudden the family packs up and leaves, and they're gone. They're out of the jurisdiction. And I think that the elements of terror, they are manageable. I think that the people will take the money and go. And once it becomes the accepted practice, then that's the end of the terror. People will gladly. As a matter of fact, in Gaza, they're dying to get out. Literally, because, a lot of Gazans have tried to escape into Europe. And once a boat sunk a while back with Gazans who were trying to get away. And these Gazans are even paying money to help smugglers get them into Europe. So the Palestinians, especially in Gaza, are really ready for this.
Now, would your idea be to do it, because you talked about it costs $100 billion, but would your idea be to do it kind of over a period of time, maybe 10, 20 years? Would that be an easier way to do it?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of planning and nuances here. You don't apply it to Gaza. We already got rid of Gaza. Let's forget about Gaza until a later date. And so if you look at a 10-year program, for argument's sake, about reducing the number of Arabs in Judea and Samaria, if you just got 1 million to leave and you're left with only a few 100,000, that would make it easier to do Carolyn Glick's plan, right?
Right.
Now, in terms of who do you get to leave, I think that you would choose neighborhoods. For instance, Calkilia is right on our border. It has about 25,000 population, and it is a refugee camp. So I would start, the closer we are to the border, we would get them to leave, and once we clean them out of the, let's say, the first 5 miles of widening our border, then we can immediately annex that land and then do everything gradually. Pick your markets where you want to clean out the Arabs, where you emphasize this to them. So you don't do it across everything, come what may. I would be selective. But all that has to be planned.
Again, this is a Prophecy on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva, and the show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Messiah Hour, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, we're continuing the conversation with Mr. Ted Belman of Israel Pundit. Let's talk about this idea. I find it very interesting, but we talk about Moshe Feiglin is interested. Are there enough politicians, enough political juice to actually make this idea plausible that it could happen?
Well, here's the thing. On the one hand, it seems like an impossible task. There's no question about that. But creating a Zionist state in 1980, or pardon me, in 1895, when Herzl mentioned it, was for sure an impossible task. And as they say, if you will it, it will be. And you have to have commitment to achieve the impossible before you can achieve it. But it's doable. And with the right kind of an investment in hasbara or propaganda, or what you have to do is spend enormous sums of money to convince the Israeli public that this is the way to go. And the more the Israeli public embraces this idea, as opposed to shunning the idea like they shunned Kahani, the greater will be the chance of making it happen.
All right, so I hear that point. You got to will it, then you can make it happen. Also, I want to know, I know a lot of logistics would have to be worked out, but let's say logistically, let's say a family takes the money, $300,000, they leave, they go to France, and it doesn't work out, and then they want to come back. Will they then say, hey, we lived here, you kicked us out? We would have to prove that they took the money, and it would have to be a deal. They would sign a contract. How would that part work in your
Well, first of all, once they leave, first of all, they're not Israeli citizens, so they can't come back. Now, and also, all the Arabs who have left, and about 20,000 Arabs leave a year, people don't realize that, they cannot come back. And they haven't come back. And Israel can prevent their repatriation, for sure. I'm not worried about that issue.
Okay. All right, so definitely an interesting idea pointed out there that you could pay the Arabs. And Meir Kahane had this idea in his book. Well, last question before we let you go. Why do you think people thought Meir Kahane was a racist? If he's saying that it's not working out between us, so let's give them money, why is that such a racist idea?
Well, look at the predominant idea in the Western world now is multiculturalism and relativism. Everybody is the same regardless of their values. Therefore, we don't discriminate against the ideology of Islam, their supremacy, all the different parts. We ignore it because we prefer to think that everybody's entitled to their own culture, and all cultures are relatively equal. So if you want to fly against that conventional leftist liberal vision, you'll get attacked. And particularly, they like to attack anybody who disagrees with it, and they call them racist.
Yeah, I guess that's what's going on right now. It's kind of hard to figure out about all that. Again, my guest this afternoon has been Mr. Ted Belman from Israel Pundit. And Mr. Belman, give a plug. People out there listening, they want to find out more about your blog, your writings. Where should they go to?
Well, if they come to the blog, they should subscribe to my mailing list, and they'll see a place to subscribe. But I send out an update every day, once a day, on all the posts of the time. and it's a very serious blog, an intellectual blog. It's based on facts and ideas. There's no BS. And I have a lot of loyal followers because they like the message and they like the intellectual aspect of the site. So it's ISRA pundit.org. That's the site, and I'd love to have you join up for the mailing list.
All right. Again, great speech. January 19th at the OU Center. We had a lot of people. We had David Badin. How did that make you feel that he came? I know you guys know each other well. He's been on this show before. And what did that mean to you that he was in the crowd?
Well, David Badin is a good guy, and I know him, and all of us who are fighting hard for Israel know each other and support each other. So it was nice that David came out and showed his support. And as you remember, I also supported David and his work when he was there. But he wasn't the only person of note that was there. I didn't point out to everybody, but it was a very in crowd in terms of advocacy and the fighters for Israel. And so he was not the only one.
Okay, that is the end of our program today. I want to thank everyone for listening and thank our guest, Ted Belman. You can find him on Facebook, TED, and then BELMAN. And you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, as they like to say it is a Jewish country, email me, messiahhour@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great day.